We are going to have a conversation with Guy Kawasaki. I'm going to do a quick little introduction before he joins us live from Austin at South by Southwest. So Guy Kawasaki, of course, is the author of the brand new book called Think Remarkable. That is going to be our conversation for today. And we encourage everybody to pick up this book. Many of you will know Guy in terms of his long history as a keynote speaker, as an author, as a podcaster, chief evangelist of Canva, and the list of accomplishments goes on and on and on. So as I mentioned, Guy is patiently waiting nearby. So Guy, I wanted to bring you into the conversation. Hello, and thank you for joining me.
Oh, Amber, it's always a pleasure. You're my favorite person in the whole country of Canada, maybe the world.
Thank you. And I always tell people that I am your biggest Canadian fan. I think that is fair to say. And you are an honorary Canadian. People might not know this. It is absolutely true. But you are in Austin right now at South by Southwest. Before we get into the book, how are things going there?
Oh, they're going very well, but there's no Tim Hortons here, so I just feel out of place.
Yes, yes. You'll have to come to Toronto on your book tour. I don't think that's planned yet. I'm a little disappointed.
Well, yeah, it's on the top of my list.
Perfect. Okay, so before we get into talking about Think Remarkable, I want to encourage people, if they have comments or questions, to please add them into the comments. I'm going to try my best to stay on top of all three of these platforms because I know a lot of people are big fans of yours, Guy, and they have many questions and comments. Now, before we dive into that, I do want to say that we prepared a very short little montage of our past interviews because I know, I'm sorry, we had to do it. We had to dig into the archives. We have been friends for a long time. We've spoken at the same events and done lots of interviews together. So let's take a look at this short clip of some of the highlights of our time on camera together.
And also asks, who do you think will win the Super Bowl?
The Super Bowl, I really don't care. You know, it's the thugs versus the cheaters. I don't.
And you're a hockey guy, right?
I'm a hockey guy. Yeah. Do you guys have a hockey team in Toronto?
Well, there's a difference between Usain Bolt's perspective on life and a marathoner's perspective on life. It is about pacing and a different kind of training and I think a different level of pain. I'm not Usain Bolt, but I don't think he experiences the kind of pain and pushing through a wall that a marathoner does. Like, you know, at the 6-second mark, Usain Bolt is pushing through the wall as opposed to the 25th mile.
It's all about a good smile, you know, a good firm handshake, dressing appropriately. And these are the little things, but people, you know, they really underestimate the power of little things.
Okay, Guy, what do you think about that little flashback?
I think that you haven't aged and I have.
I disagree with you. I think you have not aged. And most importantly, you have always been there with these amazing nuggets of wisdom that so many of us appreciate. So I know everybody's excited to dive into your new book. I had a chance to read it. You sent me a link. I don't even know if you remember this, but your team sent me a link. And I read the entire book on my phone because as soon as I got it, I was just, you know, so inspired because this book feels a little bit different than your past books. I have my own opinions on why, but I wanted to kind of start with, hey, why did you want to talk about what it takes to be remarkable?
I have this podcast called Remarkable People, and it's now in its 5th year. And so I've had interviews with remarkable people like Jane Goodall, Stacey Abrams, Stephen Wolfram, Steve Wozniak, Mark Rober from YouTube. And I've learned so much from them and been so inspired. But now looking back, there's 250 episodes and there's 5,000 pages of transcripts. And that's a lot for anybody to dig through. And this is my 16th book, so I know how to write a business book. And many business books are one topic for 250 pages. And I just don't think that Gen Z is going to read one book 250 pages about one topic anymore. So we took those 5,000 pages down to 170, and there are 88 tactics in this book. So each tactic gets about 2 pages each. And, you know, I think that's the market right now. And another thing I hate about most nonfiction books, it goes on for 4 or 5 pages without a heading or a subheading or a bullet list. And yeah, you will not find that problem with my book. It has tons of headings, subheadings, and bullet lists. This is meant to be read and acted upon, not to be, this is not a high fence here. We want you to take this and implement.
That is one of the first things that I found about the book. In fact, it felt kind of like a workbook, and I loved the format of it because, like you said, there's so many books that you read and afterwards you're like, okay, that was really inspiring, but I'm not really sure what to do now. What are my steps to becoming remarkable? And one of the things I loved about reading your book is that it was broken down into these 9 paths that you follow to really transform your life and your business. But like you said, you have all of these bullet points at the top of each section and even within to talk about those steps or that action that you take. So it really feels in 2024 like a book that is, not just a book, but really kind of a workbook or a framework for the future.
Yeah, we work very hard at that. And listen, I am compulsive. So all these headings begin with an active verb. Each bullet begins with an active verb. Each section has a thing that says who this section is for, the intended use. I'm a very intentional writer, and I don't know about you, but I use Microsoft Word and I use Microsoft Word styles. So every paragraph of that book has a style assigned to it. And I am actually the production department's dream, because you take this Microsoft Word document with every chapter, every piece has a style, and you can import it so consistently. And I also love tricolons. I came, I saw, I conquered. And I also love alliteration. And so the 3 sections of the book are growth, grit, and grace, which is one of my proudest accomplishments, because not only is it a tricolon, it's a tricolon with alliteration. And not only is the alliteration the first letter G, it's GR. So it's 2-letter alliteration tricolon. Show me any other book that has that.
You are such a nerd. I say that in the nicest way. I will say that's the thing that jumped out at me in terms of reading the book, is the focus on grit, growth, and grace. And I do want to say that I had a chance to watch an interview that you did with Gary Vee just last night. And he picked up on the same thing that I was noticing as I was reading the book, is this attention to grace. Now, I would argue that in 2024, it feels like a graceless world that we live in at times. So can we have a return to grace within business and within our personal lives?
Yeah, I mean, if only, right? So I listen, growth is the work of Carol Dweck, and everybody understands you need a growth mindset and believe you can improve and learn new skills. Grit is basically, you got to pay the price. You have to persevere. You have to be vulnerable. You have to, just stick to it. But grace is the one that people may not understand. And one of my observations after interviewing these 250 remarkable people is, towards the end of their career, it always turns to an outward focus and a payback focus. Now, I don't mean in a revenge sense, but I mean payback society for the goodness and the success and the benefits that one has accrued. And so, my father introduced me to this concept of noblesse oblige, and it's the, sort of the obligations of the nobility. But I hate the word nobility because it implies that, you're Prince Harry, you're Meghan Markle, and out of the goodness of your wonderfulness, you're going to help the peons. And that's not my attitude at all. So I have invented the term success oblige. And in the growth section, it's all about your success oblige, and how, if you're successful, it's not just because of your growth and your grit, but it's also because good fortune, people helped you, your teachers, your coaches, And so when you have this success, you have this moral obligation to help other people be successful. to keep the universe in balance.
So, when you think about all of the interviews that you have done, and there are many, one of the things that has really struck me is that over the years, of course, you're someone who was always interviewed, and then you now have assumed this position of someone who is the interviewer. What has that been like in terms of changing your perspective on leadership and lessons learned that I know you share in the book as well?
But I think that the podcast and therefore this book is probably the best work I've done in my career. And I've done a lot of work in my career. And so this is the third part of my career too. And I look at podcasting as it's my ikigai. It's my reason for existence and living. It's why I get up in the morning. So I believe in my success oblige that if you draw some circles, so there's one circle where people can get to people like Jane Goodall, because that's a small circle. It's not that easy to get to Jane Goodall and ask her to be on your podcast, and she says yes. And the lesson I learned there, and I want to communicate to people, is it's not who you know, it's who knows of you. So Jane and her people knew of me. She didn't know me personally. And that's because of the work that I did making a difference with Macintosh. So that's one circle, who can get to these people? The next circle is who has the context and the experience to know what to ask these people that you can get to. And then the final circle is, well, who has the courage to ask the question that you should ask of the people you can get to? And if you were to draw those three circles, I'm one of the few people in the middle there. And so I felt I had a moral obligation to do that. And I've been interviewed for years and years. And, after a while, you kind of get tired of answering, what was it like to work for Steve Jobs? And so now I get to ask the questions. And this podcast is very, very broad. So I swear it's going to prevent or at least slow down dementia in me, because one week I'm interviewing a surgeon with spinal cord injuries, regeneration. The next week it's Andrew Zimmern of Bizarre Foods. The following week it's Christy Yamaguchi. The next week it could be Brandy Chastain from the soccer team, and then it's a politician like Stacey Abrams, and then it's Margaret Atwood, my second favorite Canadian. And so every week I have to learn something completely different. So I swear that's going to prevent me from early onset.
Oh, well, I mean, it's also good for all of us who have followed you for a long time, because we need you in this space sharing your voice. One of the things that really struck me when I was talking about the fact that we were going to go live today is how many people dropped into the comments on LinkedIn, on Threads, on all the platforms, and they would say things like, Guy inspired me to pursue a career in technology. Guy inspired me to pursue a career in public speaking.
Can I tell you a great funny story?
Yes, that's why we're here.
This has nothing to do with the book. It has nothing to do with making a difference. It has nothing to do with being remarkable. This is just funny, okay? So especially at a place like South by Southwest, I cannot tell you how many times, Amber, people come up to me and they say, I was lost. I didn't have any direction. I didn't know what to do with my life. And then I read your book and it clarified everything for me. And I'm where I am and all put together because of your book. And I say to them, so which of my 16 books has been so miraculous, a factor in your life? I swear to God, Amber, I swear to God, I'm not making this up. They say, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So now, one of the things I say in this book about being remarkable is you cannot care about the source of your motivation. That's not what's important. What got you motivated is not important. What's important is you got motivated at all. So I tell you this story because one of my motivations now is that people go up to Robert Kiyosaki and say, your book changed my life. And Robert says, oh, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I go, no, it was Think Remarkable. That's my new goal in life, Amber.
Oh my gosh. I feel like you told me a couple stories like that, but I feel like it was Jackie Chan related, if I remember
There's a
correctly.
Jackie Chan story too.
I know there's a Jackie Chan story in there somewhere, but whatever it is, at the end of the day, like you said, I think a lot of people do obviously recognize the huge body of work that you have done in terms of all of the books. And it just struck me that so many people, I think, obviously we all love your work. We all love hearing you speak. But the thing that I like the most about you, when you think about those 3 Gs and think remarkable, yes, of course you have grit. Of course you have growth. I mean, those things I think we see not often, but they are present in many leaders today. But it is that grace piece. That to me feels like the piece that is wholly missing today among leaders. They don't have that grace. And if I can just ask you a question that just came in on Facebook, because this is a good one from Emma Rachel. Emma wants to know, how do we teach grace? Is it by modeling or by encouraging youth to participate and discover this in person? What is your advice for people who are interested in learning more about how to become someone who possesses more grace?
Well, I would say that giving good examples is probably the best way. So, if someone said, who can I use as an example of grace? I would say someone like Jimmy Carter, Nelson Mandela, Jane Goodall. And Jane Goodall, to me, personifies grace. And she's a friend of mine. And I don't know anybody more gracious and graceful than Jane Goodall. And so I think you need to point these people out that, not everybody is admiring Elon Musk, and not everybody wants to be, this kind of leader, that kind of leader, or a bro billionaire, or a hedge fund billionaire trying to find plagiarism because all the big problems of the world have been solved. And people need role models that embody grace. And it's just, I think that so much of the business press is so into net worth as a measure of goodness. And I would make a case that one's net worth is not necessarily correlated with one's grace. In fact, it may be negatively correlated.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I mean, this is one of the things, if I can just sort of gush for a minute as someone who considers you a friend and also someone who inspires me all the time. Many, many years ago, in the early days of Twitter, I was watching you grow your community on Twitter in a very graceful way. But I also loved that you were very vocal in terms of the issues that were important to you. And it really taught me something, because I think we used to think, okay, in business, don't talk about politics, don't talk about things like, your values or things that are important to you. But you have been able to do that in a graceful way and in a remarkable way.
Well,
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because a lot of people aren't able to intersect the two with such grace. It comes off as oftentimes kind of abrasive or, judgmental.
Yeah,
but you've been able to achieve, I think, gracefulness in that.
okay, this is a complicated subject. And, you know how Sheryl Sandberg wrote about leaning in, and, how you can have everything as a woman and all that. And there was a body of people who said, yeah, Cheryl, you can lean in because you're worth $2 billion or $20 billion, and your au pair has an au pair, and your personal assistant has a personal assistant. But what about me, single mom? You're telling me to lean in. Yeah, it's easy for you to say. I tell you that story because I can be accused of what I'm going to say now. Now, you have to understand that I'm 69 years old. I'm not trying to get any more jobs. And so I can really be what I want to be. To put it mildly, I just don't give a shit anymore. And so that comes with age, and there's a sense of liberation. So that's helpful. But I will tell you that there are like social media influencers with millions of followers, and they always stay apolitical or not political. And I think that is a tragic mistake. And, hats off to Taylor Swift, right? So not that I'm Taylor Swift, but if I were Taylor Swift, I would do what she's doing.
Yeah.
And so what happened was this is in like 2016. I was visiting people in Germany because I was a Mercedes-Benz brand ambassador, which was a thankless job, but somebody had to do it. And so I was in Germany and I was having dinner with these 45-year-old colleagues, and they were telling me, Guy, to this day, we talk to our grandparents and our parents, and we cannot figure out how Germany started following Hitler. How did Hitler take over Germany? How could that possibly be? And then they said to me, Guy, America, this is 1930 right now. So if you don't want your grandchildren to be wondering, did grandpa fight against the fascists and fight against the death of democracy in America, you better take a stand. So I came back and I started taking a stand, and I have never looked back. And, the people often warn me to say, Guy, like 50% of your followers are, who they believe in that political party and that person. And you know what? That's just not true. There's not 50% of my followers are in that party and support that perspective. And I think it's one of the marketing lessons is I would rather have a small number of people love what I do than a great number of people not care what I do. And so I'll go for the passionate believer who supports me. And if you don't like it, if you want automatic weapons everywhere, and if you want to restrict women's rights, and you want to restrict LGBTQ support, and you want to restrict DEI, don't follow me. I am the wrong person. Don't buy my book. This book is for the people who like DEI, like LGBTQ, like women's rights, like democracy, like voting. That's my market. If that's not you, don't buy this book.
I don't have a microphone to drop right now, but if I did, that's what I would do on this interview, because I think you're exactly right. I mean, you've always been who you are. I do want to encourage people who are listening. There's quite a few. We're just going to go for a few more minutes, but I want to encourage everybody to buy the book. It's called Think Remarkable, and it is such a phenomenal read. Really, I want to call it a framework for the future of better leadership, whether that is an individual goal that you might have or a business goal. This really is for everybody. So you need to buy it now. Again, it's called Think Remarkable. Guy, is there a perfect place to go buy the book? Like what is the most meaningful for you in terms of where people buy it? Or are you just like wherever you can get it?
Listen, in a perfect world, it would be someplace that reports to the New York Times, right? or Amazon, because you can have the pleasure of watching your rankings rise, hopefully. But you know what? I want to help. Listen, okay, I'll give you another mic drop moment, okay, Amber? So, Amber, when I die, I want people to say I helped them make a difference. And I helped them make a difference with my podcasting, my writing, my speaking, my investing, my advising. And so that's what I want. And I don't care if you buy the book from a used bookstore. I want it to help you make a difference, not me, inflate my ego or make more money. At the end of the day, I just want people to say, Guy helped me make a difference. That's it. That's the goal.
Well, I mean, you don't have to die to do that, just so you know, Guy, because you've already done that. So just hold off. You're only 69. There's many more Guy years to come. And you've already made a huge difference in so many people's lives. I think about you all the time when I post something that people will perceive as political. I'm like, hey, Guy told me years ago, like for every, everything that I post, like I may lose one person, but I gain 9 new people. And that's kind of the model in terms of getting the people who, are aligned and support you. And that's always a good thing. I do want to mention a comment from Laura over on Facebook, who says, he is so much more relaxed than in most interviews. Well done, Amber. I don't know what interviews you're doing, Guy, but I always see you like this.
Well, I think it's all the Gus's fried chicken I had yesterday.
Oh boy. Now, I do want to say, I'm going to wrap up in a couple of minutes, Guy, but every time I interview you, and it's been many, many years that I've had a chance to talk to you, we always end up talking about sports. But the question I want to ask you is, it's about Think Remarkable, the book, but particularly in the context of your hobbies of actually learning new sports that your kids start. I just want to talk about this because this is what I tell everybody about you is the story of hockey and surfing. So can you just indulge me for a couple minutes there?
Okay, so one of my true heroes in life is Carol Dweck. She wrote the book Mindset, and this is about the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. So the growth mindset would mean that you try new things, including sports. So I took up hockey at the age of 44, which is roughly 40 years too late. And I took it up because my two sons, who were probably 8 and 10 at the time, they wanted to take up hockey. And I didn't want to be one of those fathers, on the sideline or on the other side of the glass where you're on I'll give a little plug for a Canadian company, you're on your BlackBerry and you're just looking up, only when they're on the ice or something. So I took up hockey and I loved it from the first second. And then my daughter took up surfing and I took up surfing at 60 and that was 10 years ago. And now I surf almost every day. And I think the message there is about first growth, that if I could take up hockey at 44 coming from Hawaii, there's not a lot of pond hockey in Hawaii. The closest thing we have to pond hockey in Hawaii is shaved ice. Basically, it's shave ice. Don't put the D. If you want to impress people in Hawaii, do not say shaved. Say
Good to know.
Shaved, okay? And so there's that. And then taking up surfing at 60, that was very difficult. So the message is the growth mindset can be applied to surfing, not just skills and work skills. And the second thing is, and this is the insight on parenting, that I think many parents, what they do is they make their kids take up what they like, right? So if you're Eric Lindros, you make your kids take up hockey, and if you're Tiger Woods, you make your kids take up golf. But the way it worked for me was my kids embraced hockey, so I embraced it too, so I could do something with them. And my daughter took up hockey. Excuse me, she did take up hockey. My daughter took up surfing, so I took up surfing. So rather than making them take up what I like to do, I took up what they like to do. And that was my one and only insight into parenting that I can offer people. And it's a lot easier when you take up something your kids like to do than making them take up what you like to do, because they're already doing it. And I will tell you, though, there is one caveat, which is my second oldest son, he's into wingsuiting. And that's where I drew the line.
Okay, what is that?
I wanted to. Wingsuiting is where you jump out of an airplane and then you're wearing this thing that makes you look like a flying squirrel. And I drew the line there because I wanted to look good at my funeral.
Wow, there's a lot of talk of your funeral. You're surfing. I mean, you're out there surfing every day. I think you're good for a while. I do love those stories, and I think that's such great advice for parents in terms of getting interested in things that their kids are doing. Although I do understand the dangers of the sport you just mentioned. Although I'm not familiar with the sport itself, but I totally get that. I think it's good for advice for everyone. I do want to say too, Guy. I mean, I've covered technology for the better part of 2 decades. And I've seen so much technology even in that short time frame. And the tech I would love to see come to light is cloning. So we could clone you as, a future leader, because you possess all of those things that I think that we need and we're craving right now in 2024. So I do want to remind people one more time to get the book. Again, it's called Think Remarkable. This is a book that everybody needs to have on their bookshelf or on their phone. It's a book that will help you. It has 9 paths to transform your life and make a difference. And I think many of us are craving this. There's a lot of loneliness in the world right now. People are unsure. There's uncertainty. And this is one of those books that is truly inspiring. Guy, just some final words from you about the book. Anything you want to tell people as they go hit that buy button?
Wow. My God, Amber, if this whole tech whiz thing doesn't work out. You should go on Home Shopping Network, man. I would buy anything.
I do.
Like, I would buy the tourmaline and garnet ring if you were on Home Shopping Network. Oh my God.
Guy, I do go. I have been there. I've been on HSN and I've been on TSC in Canada. So I have done the shopping networks for a couple of brands that I love and I'm passionate about and stand behind. And I've learned all of these evangelism things from you, like when you believe in a brand and you actually use that.
How about you do that for me? Oh my God.
We could go on tour together. I'm just saying that like a book tour. I'll interview you.
All right. So the last thing I want to tell you about this book is I don't want people to get the idea that this is a self-help kind of book where, you buy the book and then you spend $5,000 to spend 2 days at a conference with Guy and you become remarkable. This is not that kind of self-help book. I'm not a guru. I'm not this kind of, I don't want to lead a religion. And so the thing that people need to understand is that the sequence of events is that you make a difference. You don't have to be Steve Jobs. It can be a difference to one person, one classroom, one team, one life. It could even be your own life. So you make a difference. And if you make this difference, people outside will consider you remarkable. So the way to be remarkable is not try to reposition, rebrand yourself as remarkable. Steve Jobs never woke up in the morning figuring out how to reposition himself. The way you be remarkable is you make a difference. You make the world a better place. And people will have no choice but to consider you remarkable. So it's not a chicken or egg thing. The way it works is you do something remarkable. You do something that makes a difference. People will think you're remarkable.
I love that. I may squeeze in one tiny little question as you said that, but was Guy Kawasaki born a remarkable child, or did you have to learn how to be remarkable?
I guarantee you that. I guess there's no time limit on these things, right?
No, just go for it.
I come from a lower middle class family in Honolulu, Hawaii. I was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth. It was bamboo chopsticks, best case. And I am a product, as Steve Jobs said, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. So I'm gonna have to tell you a story. You open this up, right? So in the 6th grade, I'm in this public school in Hawaii. And this 6th grade teacher tells my parents, take Guy out of the public school system, put him in the private school system because he has so much potential and he'll get wasted and lost in the public school system. So thank you, God, my parents listened to her, made the sacrifices to put me in this college prep school. This is a school in Hawaii that Barack Obama couldn't get into. So now I get into that school, and by the grace of God, I get into Stanford. And then I meet this guy who several years later, despite my lack of qualifications, hires me as the 2nd software evangelist for the Macintosh division. And the rest is history. So I'm telling you that I represent being in the right place at the right time, the sacrifice of my parents, the game-changing effect of education and grit and perseverance. So I love to work. And so all those factors, and I'm not a natural. And the greatest proof of this is if you saw me start surfing 10 years ago, you would understand a Guy is not a natural. I mean, I can just outwork people. That's my secret.
Well, I love it. And it has been so much fun chatting with you. I could talk to you forever. And I know even Sophie in the comments is saying, please keep going. I'm loving this. But I do want to get people sort of, wanting more and getting them to buy your book. Again, it's called Think Remarkable. You have to pick up a copy. You're going to be glued. And it's everything a lot of people need right now. So, Guy, thank you so much. I'm sending you
Thank you very much.
a virtual hug. It's been
you're the best. Yeah.
Come to Toronto. Come to Toronto, okay, Guy? If people here want to see you in person. So
I will. Tim Hortons, here we come.
We'll take you to a hockey game.
Donuts, yes, hockey.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thanks to everybody who has tuned in. Check out Think Remarkable online, pick up your copy. And thanks so much for joining us today.